What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue with our 2025 college football predictions for the upcoming 2025 college football season. Up next is the Arizona State Sun Devils, the team that, of course, won the Big 12 championship last year and making it to the college football playoff. And in my opinion, this was a very surprise team. I did not expect Arizona State to really be a big surprise last year. I feel like they were definitely underrated, but I just didn't feel like they had a chance to make the playoff because they're not really one of the best programs in all of college football, but it seems like they're heading in the right direction. You look at this team for 2025, can they get back to the college football playoff in 2025? Well, before we get into the schedule and give you the prediction for Arizona State, first just some thoughts on this Arizona State team for 2025. Sam Leavitt is back at quarterback. That is obviously the good news there for Arizona State. He was a pretty good quarterback last year for the Sun Devils, and he had some really good receivers last year. And pretty much everybody is back on the offensive side of the football. Almost everybody is back on both sides of the football, and this is a really well-coached Arizona State team. So this might be possibly one of the favorites to win the Big 12 this year, along with some other top contenders in this conference. And like I said, this conference is very hard to predict. Every game I just feel like is 50-50, but some games maybe are not 50-50. Maybe some of them Arizona State will be favored in. But let's now get to the schedule for 2025. Again, I think this Arizona State team is going to be really good this year. And again, last year in 2024, they were 11-3. So a really good season last year for the Sun Devils in 2024. So let's go game by game, and I'll give you my official prediction for this Arizona State football team for 2025. And they're going to kick things off on August the 30th. They'll play Northern Arizona here on August the 30th. That should be a pretty easy win there for the Sun Devils. So I got Arizona State getting the win automatically. I think they probably should score like at least 40 points in that game, and that's an FCS team. So really no doubt about it, Arizona State will win that game, and I got them starting off 1-0. And then they play a big non-conference game against Mississippi State. They will play that one on the road there on September the 6th. Mississippi State is a program that's trying to still head in the right direction. They didn't really have a great year last year because of their schedule, and they got once again a pretty tough schedule in 2025. So yeah, this Mississippi State team, just a lot of question marks about the roster. I think the roster is there for them, but the talent is just not there for them as of right now. I do think they make this a close game, though. I feel like this is a game where Arizona State probably will struggle because it's the first road game for them, and it's against a non-conference team, but it's not really an important game for them to win. But I think Arizona State does win it anyway. I think they beat Mississippi State here by not a blowout. I feel like it's only going to be a couple of touchdowns at best. So I think the Sun Devils beat Mississippi State there on the road, and then they take care of business against Texas State there on September the 13th. So I got Arizona State now jumping out to 3-0. Going into conference play the rest of the way from September 20th all the way to end of the season. They play Baylor, though, to open up Big 12 play on September 20th. Oh boy, this is going to be a tough one here for Arizona State, in my opinion, to win. You look at this Baylor team, they have a lot of experience coming back on both sides of the football. They do return their starting quarterback from last year, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on Baylor and Texas Tech. Those are the two teams that I think have a chance to be one of the top dark horses in the Big 12 this year. Those two teams just have a ton of experience coming back, and they also added a bunch of pieces in the transfer portal. So this was kind of a tough one for me to call at first, but I feel like the Sun Devils, I kind of trust them a little bit more with their coaching staff more than the Baylor coaching staff. And I think experience-wise, I think Arizona State their experience kind of will be the difference here. And I think I do trust Sam Leavitt at quarterback definitely a lot more than the Baylor quarterback. So I'm going to go with Arizona State here. Again, I think this is a close game. I'm going to go with the Sun Devils to improve to 4-0 and stay undefeated. But I wouldn't be surprised there if the Sun Devils did lose that game against the Baylor Bears there on September 20th. After that, they play a home game against TCU on September 27th. TCU, I think, is going to be a solid team. I think they have a chance to be like a dark horse team in the Big 12 this year as well, but maybe not quite as experienced as Baylor and Texas Tech will be. I still think they'll give Arizona State maybe a tough game in the first few minutes, but Arizona State, I think at the end of the day, they'll take care of business and win this one by only about like 10 to 14 points, somewhere in that point range. And I got Arizona State now improving to 5-0. They get their first bye week before playing on the road at Utah on October the 11th. Of course, this is a very tough place to play, but you look at Utah, kind of hard to tell how good this team is going to be, basically after a disappointing year last year in 2024. Can Utah turn things around this year? I mean, I think that defense is going to be pretty good for them, but it's really about the offense for them. Can that offense just get going and get back to where they used to be? I feel like Arizona State, though, is kind of the better team here. I feel like they're not the well-coached team because Utah and Arizona State are well-coached teams, but I got to go with the Sun Devils here. I think their experience does pay off in this one, and I also think the bye week does help them out. But I do expect a close game. I don't think it will be a blowout. I'm going to say it's only a 10-point win, though, for the Sun Devils. They probably win by the fourth quarter, and I got them improving to 6-0. And then here's another one of those trap games the next week here against Texas Tech on October the 18th. Another team that I just talked about, just like Baylor. This is also a dark horse team, in my opinion, and they could be a top 25 team as well. The Red Raiders are a well-coached team. If this was on the road at Texas Tech, I probably would pick the Red Raiders here to win this one, but I'm going to go with actually Arizona State to win it just because they're playing at home. But I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's only going to be a 4-point win for Arizona State. I think it's really going to come down to the wire. A turnover probably changes the difference, or maybe like a big play by Sam Levitt at quarterback makes the difference as well. But I got to go with Arizona State just because they're playing at home, and so I got the Sun Devils improving to 7-0. After that, they play Houston at home on October the 25th. Houston is a team that could be a little bit improved this year with their second-year head coach in Willie Fritz. They don't really have a talented roster, but in the future, they really could become a well-coached team. So this is a team that you'd probably want to keep an eye on. It's probably one of those teams that can definitely turn things around and make it to a bowl game, but they're definitely not on the talent level. Not on the talent level, I should say, but definitely not on the coaching ability level, just like Arizona State is. So I'm going to go with Arizona State to win this one, at least by double digits, like by a couple of touchdowns, kind of like similar to the TCU game. They win it just because they're playing at home. And so I got the Sun Devils still remaining undefeated at 8-0 going into the month of November. They play Iowa State, though, on the road next week on November 1st. Oh boy, this is a tough one here for me to call. Again, like I said, all the Big 12 games are just so hard to predict because every game really is kind of 50-50, including, some of the teams that are just dead even. Some teams may be a little bit ahead of each other, but some teams maybe are just so even. There's not really a talented team in the Big 12 overall. But you look at this Iowa State team, this will be a revenge game for the Cyclones because they did lose to Arizona State last year in the Big 12 championship. And I think they'll come in fired up in this one. And this is a very tough place to play. Again, a tough game to call in my opinion. So I'm going to go with the home field advantage in this one just because it's 50-50. So I'm going to go with Iowa State actually here to pull off the upset. I don't know if it will be an upset just because I feel like this will be a top 15 matchup. Again, I feel like it's going to come down to Iowa State's passing game a little bit more than Arizona State's probably, just well coached on both sides of the football. But I feel like Iowa State, when they run the football in this game, they probably will keep that Arizona State offense off the field as long as possible, and that probably could be the difference. So I'm going to go with the Cyclones here to pull off the upset and give Arizona State their first loss of the season, and that puts them at 8-1. They get their second bye week here before playing West Virginia on November 15th. Kind of a good spot for a bye week, especially after coming off a physical game there on November 1st against Iowa State. You get a couple weeks, to recover from that game, and I think they do bounce back. They come in a little bit angry after that loss to Iowa State, and they just show how good they really are. So I'm going to go with Arizona State to not beat West Virginia by a blowout, but I'm going to say 14 to 17 points, and I got them improving to 9-1. And then after that, it's Colorado on the road on November 22nd. This is kind of a trap game here in the late part of November. I think these are all the toughest games here in this month here for Arizona State. It's probably Iowa State and Colorado in the month of November, but they do got some tough games in October and September. They got Baylor on the road and then also Texas Tech. Those are definitely tough games there in those two separate months. But you look at Colorado, a lot of new faces on this roster, kind of hard to tell how good this team is going to be, and I feel like Arizona State is kind of just a better team here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado did pull off the upset here in this one, but I'm going to go with Arizona State just because of their experience and then also just the new faces on Colorado. It definitely has a lot of question marks in my opinion, so I'm going to go with Arizona State here to pull off the win at Colorado here on November 22nd, but I think it's a close game. I think it's probably going to be like a 4-point win, to be honest, for Arizona State. So yeah, it's probably going to be a close game where it does come down to the wire, but I got to go with the Sun Devils. So they are now at 10-1 heading into the final game of the regular season, and that's against rival Arizona on November 29th. I don't really know how good the Wildcats are going to be this year. Kind of hard to tell how good this team is going to be. I think Arizona State overall is the better team, and also last year's game was just not really close, and I don't expect it to be really close again. I know this is a rivalry. It could be really close in the first half, but second half maybe the Sun Devils pull away. But I just don't think it's going to be a close game. I just don't know how good Arizona is going to be. They could probably be the third to last worst team in the Big 12 this year, so I'm going to go with Arizona State here to close out the season with a win over Arizona. So I got Arizona State finishing 11-1 in 2025. This is a prediction that I don't really feel confident about, but this is a schedule that sets up pretty well for Arizona State to possibly make it back to the Big 12 championship and then also to the college football playoff. They definitely have a pretty good path to make it to the playoff again, but it's really all about these 3 games, maybe 4 of them: Baylor, Texas Tech, Iowa State, and then Colorado. Those 4 games are probably going to be the toughest games here for Arizona State for 2025. If they can win all 4 of them, that would definitely be a big surprise in my opinion. If they lose a couple of them, let's say they split them, they probably lose to Baylor and Iowa State, and then they probably lose to Colorado and, or actually they beat Texas Tech and Colorado, and they could probably go 10-2, which that wouldn't be a surprise either. I would definitely not be shocked if they did go 10-2, but I'm actually going to go 11-1 here. Again, this is a prediction that I don't feel confident about, but it is what it is. It is my prediction at the end of the day, so 11-1 is my prediction for Arizona State. Give me your prediction for this team down in the comments below. And do you agree or disagree with my prediction down in the comments below? Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.